Thank you, Dr. Mukesh, for your kind words. V.R. Sharma ji, Sushil Banerjee, Harun ji, Mr. Bhattacharya, Mr. G.P. Singh, Vijay, and most important, each one of you who's taken time out to be here after the pandemic. Hats off to you. You are the heroes. I'm not a metallurgical engineer, and I'm not a steel maker, so I'm the odd man out. And who would dare talk about steel, its composition, technical properties, performance, when on the panel is Dr. Mukesh Kumar? So I will not take that risk either. However, what I will talk in the next 10, 15 minutes, before Saroj comes and gives me a reminder, is about a basic question. And that basic question is exports of engineering goods. And that basic question is, are we really serious about engineering exports from India? Are we really interested in exporting engineering goods to a level which can make our country proud? I have my doubts. And I'll be happy if someone can clarify those doubts. This was in 2015 when one of the big five came to us in San Francisco and said, would you be interested in setting up India's first electro-galvanizing steel plant? And I said, ooh, hang on. I don't believe in coincidences. And the very fact that the largest steel maker has an Indian passport is not a coincidence. So I don't believe that India does not make electro-galvanized steel, and this is as close as 2014-15. We put a team together, did our due diligence, and we were so shocked. Of 70, 80 million tons of crude steel that was being manufactured, there was not 1 metric ton of electro-galvanized steel. Anyone, any idea, anybody here, how many tons of electro-galvanized steel is made on this planet today? Any number? Want to shout out any number? Anybody? I see some lovely dresses there. Any number, please shout out. 10 million. Great number to start with. Little better. Anybody else? 33.7 million tons of a special steel which has produced 33.7 million tons. India produced 0. As a resident of the United States, I was happy to make that investment, and India commissioned the electro-galvanized steel line in July of 2019. 3 things happened after that. I have twin daughters, and they went about, especially one, Rohana, she went about boasting to her friends that my father is friends with Bachchans. Because in my family, only 2 Bachchans are known, Amitabh Bachchan and Monica Bachchan. I had to tell her, I completely agree with you. That was a huge difference that Monica brought to the steel industry, not being from that background. This is how intent change results. We are at 418 billion of engineering exports. Excellent. Hats off to all the stakeholders, from federal dispensation to the last man working on the floor to make that happen. But with due respect to this figure, if I take away the purchase manager's index out of it, this value is not more than $240 billion. Just because the price of an apple went from $1 to $2.50, and you exported $20 worth, doesn't mean you exported twice. You actually exported less. It's the value which went up. Who takes the credit? So my first question that I'd like someone to help me with is, what is, in terms of policy, what is a policy? Policy is a strategy going forward. This is a strategy given 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And policies don't work for 10 years, typically they work for 40, 50 years. India was independent in 1947, South Korea was 1955, South Korea is 50 years ahead of us. South Korea is knocking on doors of Japan in terms of per capita annual income. It was a 50 years of strategy. General Park, when he was in power, he used to rule the chabols like a chairman. Go out and take all the orders that are available in North America for road construction, was his verbatim to Hyundai. They used to go and quote fancy prices. It's all available in business archives. And then somebody would ask them, excuse me, have you any idea? I've done the costings. That's not my problem. My problem is to get the orders. That's journal's problem. So there was a strategy intent. There was a policy book available. What policy book do we have here? Policies run on futuristic predictions. Can we actually predict future? Can we say what's going to happen day after tomorrow? Last 30 years were the best for this planet ever, I can assure you. Google was born in 2000. Cold War had ended. There was a unipolar world, like it or not. And Google went bankrupt in 2005. It was in 1947. It was as early as 2005. Google went bankrupt and was available for $1 billion. And nobody was willing to touch it. 15 years ahead, 7 trillion valuation. Last 30 years for the planet were progressive. They were positive. Not anymore. Comes in a reason, two countries clash, geopolitical uncertainties arise, whole lot of problems. Energy crisis to every crisis. With each passing year, the planet will get involved in more and more uncertainty. Welcome to the bad news. We are at $400 billion with a PMI index of 2.5. What if PMI index drops to 1.0 and we are aiming at $700 billion? Show me the white paper. What necessitated actions are we going to take? What's the strategic intent, if I may take you? I'll not talk about steel. I'll not talk about exports and the reason why we are here and what should be done to take it there. A strategic intent is based on your architecture for future. And because future is uncertain, so your strategic intent cannot be a 600-page manual which says, well, these are the laws and these are the gazette notifications and this is going to help you take from point A to point B. In 1983, Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who was then professor of economics in Bangladesh University, had an intent. He said one day, and I will try to do it, one day there will be no poverty in this world. And if somebody would come and ask me, what is poverty? I'll make a museum. I'll take him to a museum and say, this is poverty. It just so happened in 1982 there was a famine in Bangladesh, in his village. And 166 people came to him and said, we need $25 each or we will perish. He said, well, you are potential consumers for a bank. You are their customers. He took 166 people, took them to a bank, State Bank of Dhaka, and said, look, you're in the business of lending. I have 166 potential customers. Will you give them loans? The bank saw those 166 people and said, well, it's risky to give them loans. We cannot give them loans. He said, well, what kind of bank are you? And if you are a bank that cannot help consumers, I will set up a bank that will help consumers. So he goes, cutting a very long story short, he goes and sets up the Grameen Bank. And he said, you lend to big people, I lend to poor people. You lend to men, I lend to women. You lend individually, I lend in peer groups. You lend thousands of dollars, I lend $25 max. And during the famine, when State Bank of Dhaka did not give loans to those 166 people, he gave them $15 each. Two things happened. They survived, they thanked him, and all the money came back with 10% interest. He said, this is a daunting business model. Why have I been teaching? As I say, you do when you can. If you can't, you lecture and teach. He set up Grameen Bank, and from 1983, Grameen Bank, except the year of inception, has never made a loss. In 2006, Dr. Muhammad Yunus was given the Nobel Prize for this. His strategic intent started in 1983. And you know what he said? He said, Grameen Bank's most profitable model is not microfinance. Grameen Bank's most profitable model is a very, very shocking model. What is that? Dr. Yunus went to one of those areas of Dhaka where you have many beggars. He caught hold of 10 beggars and said, why do you beg? He said, what's your problem? I beg is my problem. None of your concern. He said, no, I want you to work. I'll give you $5. Buy some merchandise, buy some bread, buy some flowers, buy something, go to each house, try to sell. And he said, in 6 months, if I can raise 1,000 beggars, that'll be great. Those 10 beggars went, they used $25, tried to go house to house, sell groceries, sell flowers, do something, come back. His money came back. And in 6 months, take a guess how many beggars Dr. Yunus employed. Take a guess, give me a shout out. Lucky guy. How many? From 10, how many? He aimed at 1,000 in 6 months. How many did he get?
10,000.
A little higher. 500,000. And again, two things happened. 250,000 of those beggars said, we can't do this. We'll go back to what we call our core competence. Begging. Half of those, 250,000 said, we will become salesmen and change their lives. And the last one said, well, some houses are good for selling and some houses are good for begging. We'll do both. It's a true story, I'm not joking here, right? Where is our strategic intent on engineering exports? 10,000 tons of electro-galvanized steel gets imported into this country every month. I'm sitting with a plant which has a capacity of 270,000 tons per year. And I'm barely running my plant at 20% capacity. Where is the pride in the whole chain of the fact that India can also become a viable exporter of electro-galvanized steel? Is the CEO of the topmost integrated steel mill today bothered that we are losing on opportunities of export of electro-galvanized steel because I cannot make enough steel available to American Precoat? I was talking to one of the board members of a steel company, and I said, what of the following three is your biggest anxiety as you enter your office? Number one, is it your stock price? Number two, is it millions of tons? Or number three, is it pride in exports and innovation? I hope I don't have to tell you the answer. The strength of the chain is equal to the weakest link. As long as there's one weak link, we will never be successful. Let us not be waylaid and become lethargic by this $418 billion. We have the potential to do $2,000 billion. Provided every stakeholder is proudly integrated into the system by saying, yes, if American Precoat exports to Japan electro-galvanized steel, then the steel maker and the federal dispensation and every person included, the logistical guy involved in that chain, is compensated in terms of his heads up. As long as that doesn't happen, it's like saying you get apple to India, and then you say, oh, well, you know, the glass for the apple, we have it, but we can't give you enough of it. Why do you want special steel investment in India if you cannot take care of the vagaries of uncertainty and of the fact that it has immense potential? 10,000 tons of electro-galvanized steel gets imported every month, yes, sir. 33.5 million tons of electro-galvanized steel is produced every year in this country from Japan and Korea, which is just like Mumbai and Delhi. If you take that West Asia part, and you take away American Precoat's plant in Valsad, Gujarat, the second electro-galvanized steel plant is in France. There's no EG steel plant manufactured from France to Japan. And we run our capacity to 25%. I think so we need to sit down and allocate due respect and due weightage to each stakeholder in the chain and collectively come to a consensus saying whether American Precoat exports electro-galvanized steel, it was the steel provided by so-and-so steel mill, it was the zinc provided by so-and-so zinc manufacturer, and collectively the way Japan and Korea work. Korea works like a Shubh system. Mission statements. Mission statements are not ambition. We did experimentation a long time back. I took up the mission statement in one of the offices and placed it with their competitor's mission statement. Nobody noticed for 30 days. That's the value of our mission statement. No one noticed that the mission statement on their wall for the last 4 weeks was one that of a competitor. What's a mission statement? Mission statement was what John F. Kennedy said in the 1960s, we'll take a man to the moon and bring him back. So what excited people was, wow, bring him back. We could have left him on the moon. That was Apollo program in the 1960s. That was a strategic intent. He could have said, oh, we're going to be the most advanced country in aerospace and blah, blah, blah. He put it otherwise. He said, this is my white paper. In 1916, Apollo program is, we'll take a man to the moon and bring him back. We cannot expect government to do everything. And I don't think so. The problem lies with the government. I think so it lies with all of us stakeholders who are not willing to come to a point and answer the very first question that I asked. Are we seriously interested in engineering exports? And if we are, I don't think so it's a bigger problem. There can be a nodal agency who can be responsible, from inputs to assigning benefits. Customers don't buy products, customers buy benefits. Thank you, Monica, for bringing my side of thoughts bluntly to this forum. Sorry if I overstepped my timelines. From 15,000 miles, I'm entitled to those extra 2 minutes. Love to answer any question, but yes, can we achieve $2,000 billion? Yes, we can. Should we be happy about $418 billion? No, we shouldn't. Lots to be done. As Mr. V.R. Sharma said, I'll quote Elon Musk. When Tesla S was launched, we have a facility in Fremont right next to Tesla production facility. So by virtue of that, we have a lot of insights to what Tesla is. A company that was born barely 10 years back. Tesla valuation $800 billion. Put every automaker together in one pile. Toyotas, Chryslers, Daimlers, Mercedes, everybody. $650 billion. What did Tesla do differently? I can share the strategic intent if we have time. And when Model S was launched, Elon said, ladies and gentlemen, XC90 Volvo is no longer the safest car in the world. Welcome to the safest car in the world, Model S. What has EV got to do with safety? In the garb of EV revolution, what Tesla created was milestones. Today, we do not have SOPs in automotive check and balance which can rate Tesla on performance. We're having to rewrite history. And if this doesn't happen, with the prosperity that is flowing into India, with the prosperity that is flowing into developing countries, I must quote, I think it was Jim Morrison on his Oscar, when he said, what should my kid do? And his dad said, your grandfather used to walk 10 miles to school. I walked 5 miles to school. You drive a Cadillac. Your son drives a Mercedes. Your grandson will drive a Ferrari, but your great-grandson will walk again. I said, what do you mean? He said, tough times create tough men. Tough men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. And weak men create tough times. We have to raise warriors. This is the youngest country in the world. We have to have more youngsters coming into steel making. We have to have more youngsters willing to come into looking at engineering exports as a viable career option, which is not the case today. 8 out of 10 people want to go to Bangalore and do coding, or go to Pune or Noida, whatever it is. That needs to change. That skill development has to change, and that will play a very integral role in how we innovate engineering exports. People should not take a flight from any part of the world to India just because it is cheap. This has to change too. Thank you for patiently listening. Thank you, Metalogic. Thank you, everybody. I wish you a great day ahead. Bye-bye.